we have a comparison of a typical plumber in this case versus how this guy goes. And he had, one of his top items was I suggested to him that he offer a no butt crack guarantee. Well, I mean, he's got people calling him laughing, saying, "Are you the no butt crack guarantee guy?" He says, "Absolutely." He says, "Hey, I want you to come out but if I see anybody butt crack, it's labor is free." That was the guarantee: is labor is free.
The Tom Screen podcast is owned and made possible by Ethical Marketing Service. If your business is struggling with Google or Facebook ads, maybe you're frustrated figuring it out, or there's a performance issue, Ethical Marketing Service has worked on hundreds of accounts and we can help in this area. We offer a 30-day money-back guarantee, and for every direct account we look after, we sponsor a child in a developing nation with food, water and education. If you would like to find out if we can help, it's a free, no salesy consultation call, and the link is in the description. Enjoy the episode. Thomas Green here with Ethical Marketing Service. On the episode today, we have Tim Redmond. Tim, welcome.
Great to be here, Thomas. I'm looking forward to diving into our discussion, hopefully help the folks that are watching this or listening to this.
Well, it's great to have you. Would you like to take a moment and tell the audience a bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, I was born at an early age. This will only take about an hour and a half. No, I'm just kidding. What I do is I work with businesses all around the U.S., Canada. We do some overseas stuff, but that's mostly our focus. What we do is we help people grow their businesses and transform their business into a life-giving source. It's a vehicle to take them where they want to go. And so we have a whole bunch of approaches that we do. We're a do-it-for-you coaching company, and I wake up just jazzed every day I get to live doing this kind of work. So
in terms of why you do that, what springs to mind for you there?
Well, probably the best thing is to give like an illustration. I think about this Mike Mathis, who builds sheds in Arkansas, these small buildings, storage buildings. And he was in his mid-60s. He's 68 now, but he had a pretty good business. He was generating $50,000, $75,000, $100,000 a month. The problem here is he wasn't making any profit. And in the couple of years we've worked with him, we've got him now hitting around $500,000 a month or more in sales. But now his profits are around 15 to 20%. So he didn't have any retirement money set aside. He figured he had to work until he died, and didn't take any vacations with his wife. Well, they bought a condominium in Florida. They spent 3 of 4 weeks in the month down there in Florida, chasing each other around. They're giving to their church, and they got some nonprofits in their local area that they give to. And it's like they got their whole life back. Instead of working for their business is working for them. So that's my why, is to bring that kind of transformation into the lives of our clients. And it's beyond just, here's what I do for a living, here's what I do to make a buck. It's like a purpose. It's like a mission. So that's the way I look at it.
So in terms of the things that person was doing, what is the typical example that make them unprofitable?
Yeah. So he was virtually invisible on the internet. And so we got him on there really strong as the dominant force, and got a lot more business because of that. But the real thing here is he had a business that wasn't making a profit. You should have a business, and most businesses, we'll say most small businesses, should create a 15 to 20% profit. So, or more. I mean, I just talked to a client of mine that he's now popping 35%. He installs floors in the Minnesota, area. And so he's got a really good profit. So his estimating process was wrong. And what I find, Thomas, is that business owners undervalue the value they create, right? So, he just wasn't charging enough. There was no more profits, at the end of the job. And, there's a buyer and a seller in every transaction. So we're selling our service, but many of us business owners, we're buying the buyer's story. They're the seller and we're buying their story. And, well, I can't afford this and there's no way I can do this. And so we don't have a real clear vision of the value we create and why we can stand our ground to say, here's what you're getting with us that you won't get with other people. And it's well worth it. If you're just price shopping, we're not the best guy to go around with, to do business with. But if you want the best value, that is all that we give you, and the quality of our work and the quality of the materials we use and whatever's involved in that, you're going to get more bang with your buck with us. And so that's what we taught him how to do. And, he was convinced that people could only pay this much. Well, now he's able to sell it for a reasonable profit. He's not ripping anybody off, And sometimes we actually have an internal, like a cognitive dissonance. Like if we make a profit, it's like we're almost taking advantage of people. Well, that's a problem, I mean, I believe not making a profit is immoral. Well, that's really strong. You're going to preach at me? No, I'm not trying to do that. I like to shock people. But it's immoral because you've got customers that are relying on you. And if you've got employees, those employees and their families are relying on you. And if you don't make a profit, you can't continue your business, And so having a healthy profit is healthy for the buyers and you and the employees and everybody involved. It's a healthy process. And so it's a big part of what we do in the first 90 days is we make sure that we change their estimating process, we change their pricing, we change their approach and how they sell so that they can close these deals for a reasonable profit. Does that make sense, or is that
perfect sense? Yeah. And I've heard many times that small business owners don't charge enough, and that's the reason why they're struggling. Why do you think it's such a frequent problem?
Well, the way we look at the world is a lot of the way we look at ourselves. And so I find that business owners, and I'm not getting on to them, everything that I talk about, I've been in the middle of, and I'm exhibit A of doing business the worst way. And honestly, true, it's the way I was doing it. And I had gone to England many times throughout the UK, and speaking at different events and growth and how to grow your business, how to create teams and all that kind of stuff. But I had done that and I was struggling with a lot of it, just with these very same issues. And so to answer your question, it's a lot of their internal processing, a lot of our internal processing. We're kind of like, either we don't feel worthy, we don't feel deserving. We, if somebody criticizes our work, it's like we begin to get onto ourselves, to go into a downward spiral. And I like to say that the first product you sell, whenever you sell anything, now this is my philosophy. It's just my opinion. So, it doesn't mean that these awesome people watching this are going to agree, but the first product you sell, most of the time you say, well, the first product you sell is myself. Well, that's the second product. The first product you sell is your emotional state. It's how you feel about yourself and the world around you. And if the world's against you and you're kind of down on yourself and you're, just you just need to you just have got to make the sale, even if you don't make much of a profit. It's better than not doing anything, And so we have these programs in our mind that we make a case against ourselves. And it's tough to compete because the first product you sell is the confidence or a sense of certainty about yourself and what you're selling and what you're providing, what you're offering to people, that's an emotional state that they buy into. But a lot of times what we project is uncertainty, and we're down on ourselves and we're a little bit depressed because we look at our bank account and what's not there. It's like half full or half empty. What if it's completely empty? What about that? So, it's stop building a case against yourself. That's what I tell the awesomeness of these people watching. I was just reading a book from a dear friend. I'm on his, he's got a nonprofit. I'm on his ministry board. We were talking. He gave me this latest book. It's called Beat Self-Defeat. It's by John Mason. And, he's written a book called Enemy Called Average. You're born original, don't die a copy. It's just great. He wrote the book for people that don't like to read books. So like two-page chapters. And his first chapter in this book, I was just reading it yesterday, Thomas. And it's like, his first chapter was me versus me. So how much do we, we're our worst enemy, and so, our coaching is very practical and tactical. Do this, we're a do it for you coaching company. So there's a lot of things we're doing for them. But at the same time, you do have to do a little mindset work and be confident with what you're doing. Sure, it's going to be better next year, but what you're doing this year is worthy of having selling at a price you can make a decent profit.
Well, I have heard it said that people need to add a zero to their pricing. I don't know whether you think that's a bit of extreme, but in terms of your experience, what would you say on average is the amount that people should increase their pricing by?
I would say 673%. No, I'm just sound intelligent. Adding a zero, that's like a 1,000% increase. And there may be some situations that applies. But I work with contractors. I work with specialty docs. I work with people that've got a whole lot of competitors, and people do price shop. Right. And so that's, how we, the scripts that we help write for them so that they don't talk about price, but they talk about value is huge. But I find most companies, like if I were working with a remodeler or a plumber or electrician or, even a doctor down the road, I would say you can start immediately with a 10% increase. And for most people, you can actually start with a 20% increase. So let's say your normal visit to do a service call is $300 or 299 pounds. They're about the same. Unfortunately, that's probably not anything to joke about, but the pound's still worth more than $1, but not near as much as it should. A 20% increase means instead of charging 300, you're charging 360. Well, what that does, or 330 if it's 10%, what that does is that 10% or 15 or 20%, that adds right to your bottom line. And there are some people that are charging just for their labor. That's all they're paying. And there's two ways that a business owner should make money. They should make money for any work they do themselves. So they should get paid labor. If they're not on the front lines doing it, but they're managing their company, or if they're doing the work, they should get paid labor. And then the second way they should get paid is their business should make a profit. And those are two separate transactions. And I hope that helps the folks watching this, because what we've done in our estimating is we'll say, listen, let me look at your estimating process here. Okay, I see this. You have a little bit of markup here. And we say what's missing here is you don't have 20% for your profit. So, well, I can't show the client that. I said, you can build that into your pricing. You don't have to necessarily show it out, right? But you want to make sure you've got built in there at least 20% profit. So that means you've got, all the costs you have here and the overhead that you have. A lot of times we're missing profit and overhead in our estimating. And when you add those in there, then yeah, it's higher, but it's, you make a reasonable profit.
Have you got any thoughts around the conversation with existing clients and price increases?
Well, okay. So here's one thought. We say, well, listen, they've been paying this for the last 5 years. I mean, I can't just raise the price. They're going to leave me. And let's say that inflation, it's been crazy nowadays, right? But let's say inflation is just 3% a year. If you don't raise your price for 5 years, you're actually losing about 16 to 17% of your profit by staying the same. And your fear of raising your prices because clients will leave is mainly a fear we create ourselves. And the clients that will leave with a moderate increase, I mean, adding a zero may be a little aggressive, but putting 10, 15, or 20% on there. As a matter of fact, I worked with a guy. He was an electrical contractor up in Kansas City area, and he was generating about $125,000 a month in gross revenue. And when we looked at his P&L, he thought he was making some profit, not near as much as he wanted to. But when I looked at it over several months, he wasn't making any profit. He was breaking even. And he was upset about it. And I go, well, I got more reason for you to be upset. You're not making any money for your business. You're paying yourself labor, but you're not making profit as a business. And I said, I'd like for you to increase your prices 20%. Boom, off the bat. He said, there's no way I'm going to do that. I said, okay, well, let's just try 10%. Well, I can't even do that. Everybody's going to leave me. And I said, I'm going to bet you a steak dinner. And for you vegetarians out there, please forgive me just for a moment. I'm going to bet you a steak dinner. He's coming down to Tulsa in Oklahoma, and he's coming down there. We're going to do some filming and work on his business. And I said, you come down now. If you have any more than 2 of your customers complain about the price increase, then steak dinner's on me. But if you have 2 or less complain, then you're not only buying me a steak dinner, but I'm going to invite my girlfriend, who happens to be my wife of 33 years. And we're going to just make sure we come really hungry. It's going to cost you a lot of money. So we're kind of kidding around with that. Well, he bought us a steak dinner, He said,
Very
yeah,
nice.
it just, nobody complained. He said, one guy was like questioning because I made a 1-year commitment. I said, well, that's different. I said, if you've given your word on a contract basis over a certain period of time, then don't go back on your word. That's the worst thing you do in your business. But he's hitting between $500,000 and $600,000 a month. He's at 20%. One part of his business is at 23%. Just talked to him a little bit ago. And so he's making $1 million a year in profits, besides paying himself a decent, salary for the wages of him working in the business. Well, now he's hardly spending any time at all in the business. He's still paying himself a decent salary. So, I'm going to say something, Thomas, that may be controversial to some of your folks, but I'm going to say it anyway. Just if I can get them to think about it and consider maybe changing their approach, this is what it's for. The primary purpose of your business is not to serve your customers. Now, that would be like That's ludicrous. That's a lot of no. Now, if you don't serve your customers well, your business won't fulfill its main purpose. So that's important. But what is the main purpose of the business? I'm going to suggest this, and this may help people. Some of you guys may be irritated at me, and we'll give you my email or however you want to contact, and you can yell at me and throw tomatoes at me, whatever you want to do. But I believe the main purpose of your business is to serve you, the owner. Okay. And so now if you don't treat your employees well, the business won't serve you. If you don't treat your customers well, your business won't serve you. But what we do in our coaching is we redesign what we want the business, how we want the business to behave, and where we want it, where you want it to take you. And then we reverse engineer that to get you to that point. Okay. That's what our coaching does. And then we keep you on track, and we do a whole bunch of stuff for you to keep you on track. And so that's something that a lot of people don't think about, and so that's why they're taking calls in the middle of an awesome date. Oh no, this client's call. Sorry, honey. Well, stop doing that. Start being fully present with the people you're at. It's not that you hate your clients, and some of you are in a position you got to answer the call every time they call. But we've got to train our business to work for us instead of us working for the business.
A great answer, and I appreciate the value. I think that if the audience were to do one, well, just take that one thing, it would be enough. So I appreciate that. In terms of how you got into this business, how did that happen?
Well, I studied accounting in college. I became a CPA and worked for PricewaterhouseCoopers, and worked in that for a while. And a couple of years after that, I joined a guy that had started a software company that was marketing products to CPAs. And so we grew that up as just he and I, and we grew it up to about 400 employees. And we sold it to Intuit, the makers of Quicken, QuickBooks, that kind of. I think that's in the UK as well. And then after that, I began traveling around. I started a nonprofit, and I began to do conferences for business people and pastors of churches and government employees, government leaders, just to help them run better organizations, how to grow their organization, how to grow their people, and all the lessons I had learned from these 20 years or so of work. And many times after the end of the seminar, people would come up to me and say, "Hey, do you offer coaching?" I go, "Sure. What's your question?" Thinking. And so sometimes I spend an hour with them and not realizing that, people actually charge for that hour. And it's like, took me a little bit here to catch on and say, well, maybe this coaching is something that I ought to check into. And so I just shifted. Instead of going out speaking and training, I just really focused on, well, how can I help you as a businessman? And still did some speaking, still do some of that some. And which I do like speaking in the UK because the Brits, you Americans just have to deal with this, but the Brits, their brain goes so fast and with wit that they get my jokes when I say them. And sometimes they're laughing before I get to my punchlines. They slow down, you guys. And the Americans usually laugh about 2 minutes after I tell a story. So, but anyway, so I don't do that as much. We just focus on, we got about 150 businesses we're working with right now. I've got a whole team of coaches that I've trained in my systems. And so that's how I got into it, is just people asking me and thinking, wow, well, that maybe this is really what I'm supposed to be doing. So
demand for your services is probably a good thing, a good positive, should we say, driver to get into it. What would you say the biggest challenges of your business are?
Well, the biggest challenge with most businesses, including our businesses, is for us to create a purple cow. That, it's, if you're driving, you're passing a farm, you see some black and white and brown cows. That's usually what you see. But if you saw a bright, shiny purple cow, if you saw it when you're 5 years old, you'd still be talking about it today, you know? And the guy that wrote that book, Seth Godin, wrote a book called The Purple Cow. He said, if you're not remarkable, you're invisible. And so among the biggest challenges is just to stand out, because everybody and their pet dog is a business coach. Just a lot, everybody coaches. And so how do you separate yourself? How do you show people, you can trust this process because we're going to move the needle in your business. And then with that is creating a marketing process to attract those people that are your target audience. And I would say this here, Thomas, is most of us in business, we say everybody could be our customer. And so I like to say this, we're marketing to too many people. So I like to say that you can widen your reach by narrowing your focus. So we work with all kinds of businesses, manufacturers, retail, online, offline, contractors, chiropractors, anybody in the healthcare, urgent care centers, but virtually any business, we can work with, but we have focused on going after contractors and professionals in the healthcare industry that own a business there. And we just help them just grow as big as they want to grow. And so by focusing on that, now we've really focused our expertise and people can buy in that much more. So and then having a sales process. I mean, there's just so many things I could share about it. I don't know if you have any other related questions to that or if I answered the question.
You answered the question brilliantly. I have a follow-up on differentiation, just because I think a common objection to the purple cow principle is, well, I don't know what's different about my business. So if someone comes to you and says, well, I just do this service or that service, what advice do you give them, or would you give them?
The first question I would ask is, why should they choose you versus somebody else?
Because they want the money.
Yeah. And,
The joke.
and so that if that's all they say, I could say that's probably their problem. If, another question I would ask, if they're going to be really stubborn with this, the way you're portraying yourself right now, Tom, you're asking questions for your audience. So I'm not accusing you of being that. But the second question I would say is, do you have competitors? Yes, of course I do. Have you ever had to clean up the work that another competitor did? Well, yes, of course. It's all okay. So there is something differentiating that you do a better job. You can't just say, we're different because we do high quality work and we care. Everybody says that. It's like, if everybody says that, then it's like nobody's saying it. So, but there's unique ways that you can create differentiation. So here's one that I work with on a plumber. So how many plumbers are there in every town? I mean, usually there's dozens, if not hundreds. In the larger towns, larger cities, there's thousands, right? So I remember this one plumber we had, it was a local guy, and he drove up with his truck, and I was just outside, just getting fresh air and waiting for him. So he came into our office for his coaching session, but I saw on the side of his truck, he had this little sign that says, "We wear belts." And I go, "Why do you have 'We wear belts'?" He said, "Well, plumbers are famous for showing off their butt cracks. So we wear belts so you don't get to, stare at our butt cracks while we fix your sink or your bathtub or whatever." And so, okay, I said, "Well, that is a purple cow." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, we're going to do what we call this one sheet, which is a very powerful, it's way better than any brochure that you put together. We bring people through this process, but we have a comparison of a typical plumber in this case versus how this guy goes." And he had one of his top items was I suggested to him that he offer a no butt crack guarantee. I mean, he's got people calling him laughing, saying, "Are you the no butt crack guarantee guy?" He says, "Absolutely." He says, "Hey, I want you to come out but if I see anybody butt crack, it's labor is free." That was the guarantee, is labor is free. So, there's a lot of things right under your nose. And what we do, Thomas, is we're so used to our business that we get bored with our business. We check out. Well, there's nothing unique about it. And I can talk to anybody about any business, and within 5 minutes, I can find a purple cow, and if there's some unique thing that you do that would cause you to offer a better product. And it may be price. I wouldn't recommend competing on price, but a lot of us do. If the customer is just talking about the price, then we haven't made really clear the value we're providing. So it's kind of something to think about. But there's purple cow items in every business. You just have to think about it. I don't mind in our if anybody says, "Well, help me with a purple cow," yeah, sure, they can email me, and I don't know that I'll spend time with them on the phone, but if they're a legitimate business and they qualify for a growth plan, we can bring them through that. But it's don't check out. And then what I do is I will look at what other competitors are offering. I look at just advertisements, from how are people differentiating themselves, and I may find something that from a company that makes glass vases, and it's like, well, how is that going to? Well, there's something that's going to trigger my creativity about what I'm doing. It's just some of the laws of thermodynamics, and it's like when something's still, it's going to stay still. When something's in motion, it's going to stay in motion. And so we want to create motion in our business, and it really takes that. And I believe in coaching. I mean, I've got 4 coaching organizations helping our company right now. I mean, I take my own medicine. So it's good to have an expert help you think through that. And it's not just a plug. It's just, if you're stuck, get with somebody that can unstuck you. It's probably not proper English, but that's the way I look at it.
Well, your answer does cover something which you said initially, which is that people undervalue themselves and the value that they provide. Right. So it's worth highlighting that problem. You already kind of alluded to it, so it's another reminder for us. You did in your answer say that you grew a business from 2 people to 400, and I didn't follow up on that, so I feel like I should in terms of your ability to do that. If someone was to say, "How the hell did you do that? Grow that business that big?" What would you say?
One step at a time, making a lot of mistakes, and thankfully the mistakes weren't too costly that it derailed the operation. But look, I like what Bill Gates said. He said we tend to overestimate what we can do in a year, and we tend to underestimate what we can do in 10 years. And what we did on that is I had a vision, and I remember writing this down. I was 25 years old, and just joined with the company, just left PricewaterhouseCoopers, and I wrote down some dollar visions, some dollar goals that we were going to get to $1 million a year, $1 million a month, $1 million a week, $1 million a day. And with that kind of goal in mind, I kept thinking, well, how can we expand what we're doing? And progress is an uneven pathway. The sound of progress is the clanging and crashing of ideas and successes and failures. And so it's really having a long-term vision and the tenacity and endurance to really stay the course and to continue learning as you go, continue adopting. So we built this through mostly with direct mail, but we had a very targeted audience. Again, we widen our reach by narrowing our focus. And so I would get a list from the Internal Revenue Service, and they would have all the tax preparers. I said, fine, I'll buy that list and send something out. We started out with just a few thousand, and we got to where we were sending out about 1.3 million pieces of mail a year, and so we grew the thing to about $40 million. And we had folks that kept knocking on our door to say, hey, buy it. And so it was time that somebody finally offered a price, that was high enough for us to turn our heads and pay attention to it. So,
Do you still do direct mail now?
I don't do that now. Our advertising is part of it's doing these podcasts. I'll be launching my own podcast shortly, just to get a really good, just compact 10, 15-minute sessions on a problem, a client example of how they overcame that, and an example of bad advice that gets the opposite result. Just real tactical, practical things that people can apply fairly quickly. But we do a lot on Facebook and Instagram, and I think they've done some stuff on TikTok. I don't. Jury's still out on that. We get a lot of word of mouth referrals just from customers that are talking to their friends and said, hey, I'm really prospering in my business. Or the people ask, well, how are you? It seems like you're just blowing up. Yeah, well, here's the company. So we get a lot of business from referrals too.
All right. Well, I think you provided a lot of value today. I'm certainly going to see whether you're on TikTok or not, because I'd like to see what that looks like. But I ask a question for everyone that comes on the podcast, and that is, what does success mean to you?
Yeah, success for me is having the freedom to do what I love doing, and whether it's something I do for pay or not for pay. I like generating exchanges with people that are profitable for them and me. But I don't have a retirement plan. I'm putting money aside just for rainy days. And, let's say that if I get older and I'm not able to work for whatever reason, I'm trying to be as wise as I can. But I don't ever plan on retiring. I promised my wife that we're going to spend a lot more time having me chase her around exotic resorts all over the world. Okay. So we were just in London, visiting some dear friends. We just had done a river cruise at Danube. And so having the freedom to do those things, but I get up and I get to do what I love to do every day. And sure, some days are long, or some days maybe not the most pleasant, but I love what I want to do, and I want to do this for another 50 years, or as long as I have breath, and as long as I take enough trips and chase my wife around, I think everybody in this household is happy. So
Glad to hear it. Well, if people want to hire you or follow you, where do they go?
Well, they can go to our website. It's Redmond Growth. So it's Redmond. It's like the city in Redmond, Washington, where Microsoft is based. It's Redmond Growth, GROWTH.com. They can fill out a form there, or they can email me directly, Tim at Redmond Growth. So TIM at Redmond Growth is my email. And if Thomas, if they will email me or on the form from a website, if they'll say, hey, I watched Thomas Green's podcast and I love Thomas Green, and you give him a 5-star review, folks, whatever, just show your love for Thomas. If you do that, what we have is what we call a growth plan, where we analyze your business. We see where you are and your current capacity. And then we see where you want to be in 3 years. And then we will build a step-by-step process of things you can do on your own to get to that 3-year goal of revenue and profits. And usually during the call, we expand what they think they can do just through our process. It's an amazing process. And we normally charge $2,500 for that because they see a clear view of where they want to go and how to get there. But we will waive that $2,500 fee if they relate to you and your podcast here. Just, hey, I saw you on the podcast. So they do that. We waive it. It's no cost. I would like to say it's got to be a real business that you've got going. And but yeah, I would love to be able to do that. I hope to hear from some of your folks here, and if I can be of help to them, that'd be great.
Very generous. So thank you for putting that out. Tim, have you got any closing thoughts for us today?
Let's go back to people's, like, how they look at themselves. And I want to ask a question. If you had a friend that spoke to you the way you speak to yourself, would they still be your friend?
I asked that question on the podcast quite frequently.
Yeah.
And do you want to know the funniest answer I got from it?
Please
he said I'd probably be in prison.
Yeah. So my recommendation is to create a mindset where you're not working against yourself. And it's like, I remember my wife being in front of a mirror. She's not around here, and we were getting ready to go to a meeting somewhere, and she was commenting on her body. She's a beautiful woman. I mean, I've married up. I'll just say that. But she was commenting on something, and every now and then, about every 7.5 years, I say something just brilliant. It just comes out right. And I say, stop talking to my best friend like that. Nobody talks to my best friend that way. And she's like, ready for a argument. Then she realized what I had said. And let me just say we were late to the meeting here. So, but anyway, we'll leave it at that. But it's just, don't build a case against yourself. There's so much that the world needs of what you have to offer if you'll just pour your heart into it.
A great way to end. Tim, thanks for being a great guest today.
Thank you, Thomas.